The night shift at the Deep Space Monitoring Station was usually boring. Doyen sat at his desk watching numbers scroll across his screen. He had been doing this job for 3 years. Most nights nothing happened. Space was quiet. Space was empty, but tonight was different. At 2:47 a.m., his computer made a sound it had never made before. Doyen sat up straight. His coffee cup almost fell from his hand. The screen showed something impossible, a signal. Not from Earth, not from Mars, not from any human station. It came from the stars. His hands shook as he typed commands into his computer. The signal was weak but clear. It had traveled for a very long time. The computer calculated the distance. 40 light years. That meant the signal was 40 years old. Someone had sent this message before Doyen was even born. He called his supervisor immediately. Within an hour, 20 people filled the small monitoring station. Everyone stared at the screens. Nobody spoke much. They were all thinking the same thing. Humanity was not alone. Captain Minho arrived at dawn. He was a tall man with sharp eyes and gray hair at his temples. He had spent 20 years in the Space Forces. He had seen many strange things in space, but never anything like this. "Play it again," he said. The room went silent. The signal played through the speakers. It was not words. It was not music. It was mathematics, pure and clear. Numbers that made patterns. Patterns that made pictures. The first picture showed a solar system. 3 planets orbiting a yellow star. The second picture showed buildings, cities. The third picture showed people. Not humans. Something else. They had 4 arms and large eyes. They looked peaceful. The fourth picture showed fire, destruction, ships in the sky. The peaceful people running, dying. The last picture was the most important. It showed coordinates, a location in space, and a single symbol that appeared over and over. Minho did not need a translator to understand it. "Help, please help. How old is this signal?" Minho asked. 40 years, Doyen said quietly. "They sent this 40 years ago." The room went silent again. Everyone understood. If someone sent a cry for help 40 years ago, they were probably dead now. Probably gone. Probably destroyed by whoever was attacking them in those pictures. But maybe not. Maybe some survived. Maybe some were still waiting. Maybe someone finally heard them. The signal went to Earth's united government within hours. Scientists worked day and night to decode every part of it. The mathematical patterns were complex, more advanced than anything humans had created. Hidden inside the signal were formulas, equations, knowledge. Engineer Hana was the one who understood it first. She was young, only 28, but brilliant. She had been studying faster than light travel for 6 years. Every scientist said it was impossible. The math did not work. The energy required was too great. But the aliens had hidden the answer in their distress call. Like leaving a key under the doormat. Like saying, "If you can understand this, you can come help us." Hana worked for 3 months. She barely slept. She barely ate. Her team thought she was crazy. The equation seemed impossible. But slowly, piece by piece, it came together. She built the first FTL drive in a warehouse outside New Seoul. It was the size of a building. It hummed with power. When she turned it on, space itself seemed to bend. "It works," she whispered. "It actually works." The government meeting lasted for 2 weeks. Representatives from every nation on Earth argued about what to do. Some said it was too dangerous. The signal was 40 years old. Everyone was probably dead. Why risk human lives for ghosts? Others said humanity had a duty. Someone had asked for help. Someone had trusted that someone out there would hear them and come. How could humans ignore that? Admiral Taeyang spoke last. He was old. He had fought in the Mars Independence War. He had seen the worst of humanity and the best. He stood before the assembly and his voice was steady. "When I was young, my ship crashed on Europa," he said. "I was trapped in the ice. My oxygen was running out. I sent a distress signal. I did not know if anyone would hear it. I did not know if anyone would come. But I sent it anyway because that is what you do when you are dying. You hope." He paused. The room was completely silent. "Someone came for me. A rescue ship traveled 3 days through a radiation storm to pull me out of that ice. They risked their lives for mine. I asked the captain later why he came. He said, because you called for help. That is what we do. That is what makes us human." The vote was close. But in the end, humanity decided to go. 50 warships prepared for the journey. The best ships humanity had ever built. Each one carried weapons and shields and enough supplies for 2 years. Each one carried soldiers and scientists and engineers. Each one carried hope. Minho stood on the bridge of the lead ship, the Horizon. Through the window he could see Earth, blue and green and beautiful. Home. He thought about the aliens who sent the signal. Did they have a home like this? Did they have families? Did they look at their sky and wonder if anyone heard them? Hana was in the engine room, checking the FTL drive one last time. It was her design, her creation. If it failed, they would be lost between stars forever. She tried not to think about that. Taeyang stood in the command center watching all 50 ships prepare. He was too old to go with them, but he would guide them from Earth. He looked at the coordinates on the screen. 40 light years so far, so impossibly far, but humanity was going anyway. All ships ready, sir, a young officer said. Taeyang nodded. He opened the communication channel so everyone could hear him. All 50 ships, all 5,000 people who volunteered to cross the galaxy for strangers. 40 years ago, someone sent a message into the dark, Taeyang said. They did not know if anyone would hear. They did not know if anyone would care, but they sent it anyway. Today we answer. Today we tell them they are not alone. Today we show the galaxy what humanity is capable of. He paused. Then he gave the order that would change everything. All ships. Jump. Space bent. Light stretched. And 50 human warships vanished from Earth's orbit, racing toward a star 40 light years away. Racing toward people who might be dead. Racing toward a war they did not understand. But they were going anyway, because someone had called for help. The jump took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of traveling faster than light. 3 weeks of hoping they would arrive at the right place. 3 weeks of wondering if anyone would still be alive. When the 50 human ships emerged from FTL, they found a graveyard. Minho stood on the bridge of the Horizon, staring at the screen. Debris floated everywhere. Pieces of ships. Pieces of stations. Pieces of things he could not identify. All of it was old. Years old. Maybe decades old. Sir, I am picking up energy signatures, said Yunji, the scanner officer. Her voice was tight. Asteroid field at bearing 270. Something is hiding there. Could be a trap, said Suho, the weapons officer. His hand moved toward the firing controls. Or survivors, Minho said quietly. Open a channel. All frequencies. Let them know we are here. Lieutenant Yuna stepped forward. She was the communications expert. She spoke 17 languages, though none of them would help here. She took a deep breath and activated the transmission. Unknown ships, this is the human vessel Horizon. We received your distress signal. We came from Earth to help you. Please respond. Silence. Just static and the hum of the ship's engines. Then a voice. Weak. Frightened. Speaking in sounds humans had never heard before. But the computer worked fast. Within seconds it found patterns. Made connections. Began to translate. You came? You actually came? Yuna's hands shook. Yes, we came. Are you the ones who sent the signal? We sent it so long ago. We thought no one heard. We thought we were alone. You are not alone anymore, Yuna said. Can we meet? Can we help you? It took 6 hours to arrange. The aliens were afraid. They had been hunted for so long that trust was hard. But slowly, carefully, they agreed to let one human ship approach. Minho took a shuttle to the asteroid field. Yuna came with him along with 4 Marines. They flew through the broken rocks and twisted metal until they found it, a small station hidden in a crater. It was damaged, patched with whatever materials they could find. Barely holding together, the airlock opened. Minho stepped through. The alien who waited inside was thin, too thin, like someone who had not eaten enough for years. It had 4 arms, just like in the pictures from the signal, large eyes that looked sad and tired. Its skin was gray with patterns that might have been colorful once. I am Torin, the alien said through the translator device. I am one of the last Valen. I am Captain Minho. We came from Earth, we came to help. Torin made a sound. The translator said it was crying. Over the next hours, Torin told them everything. The Valen had been a peaceful people, 12 billion of them living on 3 worlds. They studied science and art. They never built weapons. They never thought they needed to. Then the Cradle Empire found them. The Cradle were conquerors. They had been expanding for 600 years. They took worlds and stripped them of resources. They enslaved species that were useful. They destroyed species that were not. They saw the Valen and their beautiful worlds, and they wanted them. The war lasted 35 years. The Valen tried to defend themselves, but they did not know how. They had no weapons, no warriors, no concept of military strategy. They sent the distress signal in desperation, hoping someone in the galaxy would help. No one came. No one helped. The Velen died by the billions. Now only 3 million remained, hiding in asteroid fields, hiding in dead stations, waiting to be found, waiting to die. Why did no one help you? Yuna asked. Her voice was angry. Other species must have heard your signal. Torin's large eyes looked at her. The Cradle are strong. Most species are afraid of them. And the Velen? We have nothing to offer. No weapons to trade. No armies to contribute. We are just people who wanted to live in peace. Minho felt something cold in his chest. Back on Earth, people had argued about whether to come. They had worried about the risk. They had wondered if it was worth it, for they had never considered that others might have heard and simply chosen not to care. Show me, Minho said. Show me your worlds. Show me what they took from you. Torin led them to a viewing screen. The 3 Velan homeworlds appeared. What had once been beautiful was now dead. The cities were ruins. The forests were gone. The oceans were dark with pollution. The Cradle had taken everything and left nothing but corpses. They come back sometimes, Torin said. Patrols, to make sure no Valen survived on the surface. To hunt the ones like us who hide in space. When did they last come? Minho asked. 3 days ago. Suho checked his scanner. His face went pale. Sir, I'm picking up contacts. 20 ships just emerged from FTL. Cradle design. Minho's jaw tightened. Get back to the horizon now. They ran to the shuttle. Torin tried to follow, but Minho stopped him. Stay here, hide. We will handle this. Handle this? Torin's voice was confused. You cannot fight them. No one can fight them. They have destroyed 47 species. They have never lost. Minho looked at the alien, at this frightened, starving survivor of genocide. He thought about Earth, about Admiral Tae-Yang pulling him out of that wreckage on Europa, about humanity deciding to cross 40 light years because someone asked for help. They have never fought humans before, Minho said. The shuttle raced back to the horizon. Minho climbed onto the bridge and immediately opened channels to all 50 human ships. All vessels, this is Captain Minho. We have confirmed the Valen are alive and in need of protection. 20 Cradle warships are approaching. This is not a drill. This is not an exercise. Battle stations. Prepare for engagement. The Cradle ships were large, larger than human vessels. They had thick armor and powerful shields, energy weapons that could cut through metal. They moved in a perfect formation, confident and strong. They sent a transmission. The computer translated it instantly. Unknown vessels, you are in Cradle space. You are harboring Valen criminals. Surrender them immediately or be destroyed. Minho did not hesitate. This is Captain Minho of the human vessel Horizon. These people are under our protection. Leave now and no one has to die today. The Kratal response was laughter. Humans? We have no record of your species. You must be primitives, barely capable of space travel. You have 50 ships. We have an empire of 1,000 worlds. Leave now and we will let you live. Minho looked at Suho. Target their lead ship. Fire when ready. Sir, their shields are up. Our scans show they are very strong. I did not ask about their shields. I said fire. Suho pressed the button. The human railgun fired. A solid metal slug accelerated to a fraction of light speed. It hit the Cradle shield. The shield was designed to stop energy weapons. Lasers, plasma, particles. It was not designed to stop a chunk of metal moving at 50,000 kilometers per second. The shield collapsed. The slug punched through the Cradle ship from bow to stern. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. The Cradle formation broke. Confusion, fear. They had never seen weapons like this. All ships. Open fire, Minho ordered. 50 human warships unleashed everything they had. Railguns, missiles, nuclear torpedoes. Kinetic kill vehicles. Weapons that did not rely on energy. Weapons that the Cradle shields could not stop. The battle lasted 4 minutes and 32 seconds. When it was over, 19 Cradle ships were destroyed. One escaped, jumping to FTL with its engines on fire. The human fleet had no casualties. A few ships had minor damage. Nothing serious. Minho sat in his command chair, breathing hard. Around him, his crew was silent. They had just won their first battle against an alien empire. They had just announced humanity's arrival to the galaxy. "Sir," Eunice said quietly, "the Valen are sending a transmission." "Put it through." Torin's voice came over the speakers. It was shaking. "What? What did you do? How did you do that?" "The Kratal have never been defeated. Never. Not in 600 years. Minho stood up. He looked out at the debris field, at the remains of ships that had thought they were invincible. "We did what we came here to do," Minho said. "We protected people who needed help, and we will keep protecting them until this is over." Over? There are thousands of Kratal ships, hundreds of worlds, an entire empire. You cannot fight them all. Minho smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just realized something important. "Torin, let me tell you about humans. We are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest. We are not the oldest. But we are very, very good at one thing. We are good at war. We have been practicing for 10,000 years. Every weapon you can imagine we have built. Every tactic you can think of we have tried. We have fought each other for so long that we know every way to hurt, to destroy, to win." He paused, looked at the stars. "The Kratal think they are conquerors. They have been bullying peaceful species for centuries. They have never faced someone who fights back. They have never faced Earth." Across the fleet, human ships began spreading out. Some moved to protect the Valen survivors. Others began scanning the system for more threats. Still others sent messages back to Earth telling them what happened. Telling them to send more ships because this was no longer a rescue mission. This was war. News traveled fast in the Kratal Empire. The single ship that escaped the human attack jumped to the nearest Kratal fortress world. Within hours, every Kratal commander knew the truth. 20 ships destroyed, by an unknown species, by primitives who should not have been able to fight back. The Empire had not been challenged in 600 years. They had conquered 47 species. They had never lost a battle, never retreated, never shown weakness until now. Warlord Thex received the news in his command fortress. He was old for a Kratal. His scales were marked with scars from 100 battles. He had personally led the conquest of 12 species. He did not believe in mercy. He did not believe in peace, he believed in strength. "These humans destroyed 20 ships?" he asked. His voice was calm, but his eyes were cold. "Yes, Warlord," said his second-in-command. "The survivors said their weapons were unlike anything we have encountered. They penetrated our shields. Shields that have protected us for centuries." "Yes, Warlord." Thex was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood. He was massive, 3 meters tall, covered in armor plates that were part of his body. "Gather the fleet. 200 ships. We will crush these humans. We will show them what happens when someone challenges the Kratal Empire." 200 ships for one small fleet, Warlord? Thex turned. His eyes burned. "They destroyed 20 of our vessels. They humiliated us. We will not make the mistake of underestimating them again. We will bring overwhelming force. We will leave nothing but dust." On the horizon, Captain Junho was studying the data from the battle. He was the fleet's tactical officer, a quiet man who spent most of his time staring at screens and running simulations. But he was brilliant at understanding how things worked. "Their shields are fascinating," he told Minho. "They are designed to absorb and redirect energy, lasers, plasma, particle beams. The shields drink them up and dissipate the power. Very efficient. But not against kinetic weapons," Minho said. "Exactly. They have never needed to defend against solid projectiles because no one in this part of the galaxy uses them. They all use energy weapons. It is like they all agreed to fight the same way." "They agreed on rules of warfare," Yuna said. She had been reading through captured Kratal databases. "There are treaties, conventions, things you are not allowed to do in war." Minho frowned. "What kind of rules?" "No kinetic bombardment from orbit. No weapons of mass destruction. No targeting civilian infrastructure. No cyber warfare. Honor codes about engaging in direct combat." Junho looked up from his screen. "They have rules for war?" "Apparently every species in this sector follows them. It is how civilized species fight according to their records." Minho and Junho looked at each other. Then they both started laughing. Not happy laughter. Dark laughter. "They have rules for war," Junho said. "Humans barely have rules for breakfast." "This changes everything," Minho said. "They are not prepared for total war. They are not prepared for Earth." Over the next 3 weeks, both sides prepared. The Kratal gathered their fleet. 200 warships from a dozen worlds. The largest battle fleet assembled in a generation. They were confident. They were strong. They would destroy the humans and make an example of them. The humans dug in. They built defensive positions around the Valen survivor stations. They laid minefields. They positioned sensor nets. They studied every piece of cradle technology they could find, and they sent messages back to Earth. Earth responded. 50 more ships jumped across the stars. But these were different. These were not explorers. These were warships built for fighting. They carried Marines and assault shuttles. They carried enough ammunition to level a planet, and they carried Commander Sora. Sora was young for a fleet commander. Only 32, but she had graduated top of her class at the Naval Academy. She had fought in the Mars War. She had studied military history her entire life. Alexander, Napoleon, Patton, Sun Tzu, every great commander who ever lived. She understood something important. War was not about honor. It was about winning. The Cradle fleet arrived at the Valen home system with great ceremony. They came out of FTL in perfect formation, 200 ships arranged in battle lines. Impressive, terrifying, designed to make enemies surrender before a shot was fired. They found 90 human ships waiting for them. Warlord. Thex stood on the bridge of his flagship. He looked at the human fleet and smiled. They are outnumbered 2 to 1. They must be fools. Should we offer them a chance to surrender, Warlord? No, destroy them all. Leave no survivors. Let the galaxy know what happens to those who defy us. The Cradle fleet advanced, shields at maximum, weapons charging. They moved in their traditional formation. Lines of ships supporting each other, concentrated firepower, tactics that had won them 1,000 battles. The human ships scattered. Instead of meeting the Kratal in a neat battle line, the human ships broke apart. They spread out across the system. They moved in patterns that made no sense. They ran, they flee. One of Thex's officers shouted. They are cowards. But Thex was not smiling anymore. Something felt wrong. Then the first mines detonated. The Cradle had never used mines before. It was not honorable. But humans did not care about honor. They had filled space with thousands of small hidden explosives. When the Cradle fleet passed through them, they exploded. Shields fell. Hulls breached. Ships went dark. Evasive maneuvers. Thex roared. But it was too late. The human ships stopped running. They turned around. And they attacked. Commander Sora sat in her command chair, watching the battle unfold exactly as planned. All ships execute maneuver Delta 7. Swarm tactics. Target their command ships first. The human fleet did not fight like the Cradle expected. They did not form lines. They did not engage in honorable ship-to-ship combat. They attacked from every direction at once. 3 or 4 human ships would target a single Cradle vessel. They would hit it with missiles and railgun fire until it died. Then they would move to the next target. The Cradle tried to reorganize, tried to form defensive positions, but the humans would not let them. Every time the Cradle started to regroup, human ships would strike from a new angle. Fast attacks, hit and run, never staying still long enough to become targets. Warlord Thex watched his fleet being torn apart. Ships that had seemed invincible were exploding. His perfect formation was chaos. His warriors were dying. They do not fight with honor, he screamed. On the horizon, Junho heard the transmission. He laughed coldly. No, we do not. The battle lasted 7 hours. Not because the humans needed that long, but because they wanted to destroy every single Cradle ship. No survivors. No one to retreat and tell the Empire what happened. When it was over, 200 Kratal ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans lost 34 vessels. It was a slaughter, but the humans were not celebrating. They were already planning the next move. Minho stood with Sora in the command center. Torin was there too. The Valen leader looked at the battle reports with disbelief. How? Torin whispered. How is this possible? Sora looked at him. Her face was tired, but her eyes were hard. Because we do not fight wars for honor or glory. We fight wars to win. We use every advantage, every weapon, every tactic. We do whatever it takes. Is this how all human wars are fought? This is how all human wars have always been fought, Minho said. We do not have rules. We do not hold back. When humans go to war, we commit completely. Torin looked at the screens showing the destroyed Cradle fleet. The Empire will send more ships. Thousands of ships. They cannot allow this defeat to stand. Good, Sora said. Let them come. Every ship they send here is one less ship hurting someone else. We will hold this system. We will protect your people, and we will teach the Cradle Empire what fear feels like. Across the galaxy, the news spread. The Cradle Empire, undefeated for 600 years, had lost 400 ships to the humans. Species that had been enslaved for generations heard the news and began to hope. Maybe the Cradle could be beaten. Maybe someone was finally strong enough to stand against them. Maybe the humans were that someone. In the darkness of space, human ships patrolled the Valen system. They sent messages back to Earth. Send more ships. Send more weapons. Send everything, because the war had only just begun. Emperor Dral sat on his throne and tried to understand how this had happened. The Cradle Empire had stood for 1,000 years. They had conquered worlds, enslaved species, built a civilization on strength and fear. They had never been challenged. Now in 6 months they had lost 400 ships to a species they had never heard of before. Where did these humans come from? He demanded. His advisors looked at each other nervously. No one wanted to give the Emperor bad news. Finally one spoke. They came from outside our sector, Imperial Majesty, from a world called Earth, 40 light-years from Valen space. And they traveled 40 light-years to protect the Valen, the weakest species in the galaxy? Yes, Imperial Majesty, Dral stood. He was enormous even for a Cradle. His armor was decorated with jewels taken from conquered worlds. His crown was made from the bones of enemy kings. The Valen sent a distress signal. We assumed no one would answer. No one has ever answered before. The humans are different, Imperial Majesty. They do not follow the conventions of war. They use forbidden weapons. They attack without honor. Enough, Dral said. His voice was cold. I do not care about honor. I care about victory. Mobilize the Grand Fleet, 2,000 ships. Every available vessel. We will not let these humans embarrass us further. 2,000 ships, Imperial Majesty? That is the largest fleet ever assembled. These humans have made a mistake, Dral said. They have made themselves our enemy. They have shown the galaxy that the Cradle can be beaten. We must crush them completely. Destroy every human ship. Find their homeworld. Make an example of them that will last for 1,000 years. While the Cradle mobilized, Earth was not idle. The news of the victories had reached home. Every human on every world was watching. Humanity had gone to the stars to answer a distress call. Now they were at war with an empire that had enslaved half a galaxy, and humanity was winning. 200 more ships jumped from Earth. These were the newest, most advanced vessels humans had ever built. They carried crews who volunteered by the thousands. Everyone wanted to be part of this. Everyone wanted to help. They also brought Marines. Colonel Quan was one of the first to arrive. He was a career soldier, 40 years old, scarred, tough. He had fought on Mars during the Independence War. He had fought on Titan against separatists. He had fought in places most people had never heard of, but he had never fought aliens before. His transport ship landed on a liberated Kratal fortress world. The Cradle had used it as a military base, a place to store weapons and train warriors. The humans had taken it 3 weeks ago in an orbital assault that lasted 6 hours. Quan walked through the ruins. Cradle buildings were huge, built for beings 3 meters tall. Everything was decorated with symbols of conquest. Murals showing defeated enemies, statues of warriors, monuments to victory. The Marines had spray-painted over most of them. Human words, human symbols. One mural of a Cradle warrior crushing a Valen city had been painted over with a simple message. Humanity says no. Welcome to Fort Freedom, said Captain Jiwan. She was Quan's second in command. Young but fierce, she had led the assault that captured this base. Fort Freedom? Quan asked. That is what the freed slaves call it. This base held 10,000 Valen prisoners. The Cradle used them as laborers, worked them until they died. When we arrived, there were only 3,000 left. Where are they now? Safe. We evacuated them to the Valen homeworld. Or what is left of it. Engineer Hana is there now with reconstruction teams. They are rebuilding. Quan nodded. Show me the defenses. Jiwan led him through the base. The Marines had been busy. Walls were reinforced. Weapons were positioned. Sensor arrays watched every approach. The Cradle will come back for this world. It is too valuable to abandon. Good, Quan said. Let them come. 2 weeks later, they did. A Cradle fleet of 300 ships arrived to retake the fortress world. They expected to find it abandoned or lightly defended. They found 200 human warships in orbit and 50,000 Marines on the ground. The space battle was brutal. Human ships used the gravity well of the planet to their advantage. They used debris fields for cover. They positioned weapons platforms at strategic points. When the Cradle ships tried to get into orbit, they flew into a kill zone. 100 Cradle ships burned in the upper atmosphere, but some made it through. Dropships fell toward the surface. Thousands of Cradle warriors coming to reclaim their fortress. Quan watched them land. He stood on the walls of Fort Freedom. Around him, Marines checked their weapons, set up firing positions. Prepared for what was coming, sir, Jiwan said. Shouldn't we use orbital strikes? Take them out from space? We could, Quan said. But the Cradle have conventions about orbital bombardment. They think it is dishonorable to attack ground forces from space. So we are going to show them what human ground combat looks like. The Cradle warriors were massive. 3 meters tall. Natural armor plates, stronger than any human. They had conquered species after species in ground combat. They thought themselves invincible. They had never fought human Marines before. The Cradle charged the fortress walls. They expected the humans to meet them in honorable combat. Warrior against warrior, strength against strength. Instead, the Marines opened fire from 1,000 meters away. Automated turrets, sniper rifles, artillery. The Cradle fell by the hundreds before they even reached the walls. Those who survived the killing field found the walls defended by bunkers and firing positions. They climbed, expecting hand-to-hand combat at the top. Instead, they found mines and automated guns. They found kill zones and overlapping fields of fire. They found death. They are not fighting with honor, a Cradle officer shouted. Quan heard the transmission. He picked up his radio. This is Colonel Quan to Cradle ground forces. You invaded this world. You enslaved innocent people. You showed them no mercy. Do not expect honor from us. Expect only defeat. The battle lasted 3 days. At the end, 5,000 Cradle warriors were dead. The rest surrendered. The human casualties were 42 Marines killed, 107 wounded. The survivors sat in a prisoner camp surrounded by humans a third their size. They could not understand how they lost. Lieutenant Yuna came to interview them. She was now working as a liaison between humans and the various alien species. She walked into the camp with 2 Marine guards. The Cradle prisoners looked at her. She was small, young, female. In Cradle culture, females did not fight. They stayed home. They raised children. You are in charge? One Cradle asked. His voice was full of disbelief. I'm here to ask questions, Yuna said calmly. Why do you fight for the Empire? Why do you conquer peaceful species? Because we are strong. Because the strong rule the weak. That is the way of the universe. No, Yuna said. That is the way of bullies. Humans have a saying. The measure of a society is how it treats its weakest members. The Cradle Empire measures nothing but cruelty. You do not understand. We have an empire of 1,000 worlds. We have been conquering for 600 years. You cannot defeat us all, Yuna smiled. It was not a kind smile. Watch us. While the Cradle Empire mobilized its grand fleet, humanity was working on something else. They were building alliances. Strategic Officer Nari had an idea. The Cradle had conquered 47 species. Most were enslaved, but some had been driven to the edges of space. Some were hiding, some were waiting for a chance. We need to find them, she told Admiral Taeyang over the quantum communication link. We need to offer them hope. What kind of hope? Taeyang asked from Earth. The hope of freedom. The hope of revenge. The Cradle have enemies everywhere. We just need to give them a reason to fight back. Over the next months, human ships traveled to hidden worlds. They found the Valen's neighbors, the Haran. They were a manufacturing species. Brilliant engineers. The Cradle had enslaved them and forced them to build weapons. We will help you free your worlds, Minho told the Haran leaders. In exchange, we need your help building ships. The Haran agreed immediately. Humans found other species too. The Pren, who were farmers, the Ducati, who were miners, the Welton, who were scientists. All of them had been conquered. All of them had been enslaved. All of them wanted freedom. A coalition formed. With humanity at its center. By the time the Cradle Grand Fleet was ready to launch, the balance of power had shifted. The Empire no longer faced just 90 human ships. They faced 500 vessels from a dozen species. All of them united. All of them ready. And they were all learning human tactics. The Threshold Nebula was a cloud of gas and dust between two solar systems. It was beautiful, colorful swirls of purple and blue, ancient stars being born in the cosmic dark. Traders usually avoided it because sensors did not work well inside. Ships could hide in the dense gases, which was exactly why Commander Hyun chose it. He stood on the bridge of his ship, the Phoenix, and studied the tactical display. The Cradle Grand Fleet was coming. 2,000 ships, the largest military force assembled in galactic history. They were moving toward the Valen home system. They intended to destroy every human ship, kill every Velan survivor, make an example that would last forever. All ships, this is Hyun. Remember the plan. We do not fight them in open space. We make them come to us. 500 allied ships waited in the nebula. Human vessels. Oran engineering ships converted to carriers. Velan science vessels loaded with sensors. Even a few Pren farming ships that had been armored and weaponized. It was not a traditional fleet. It was a collection of survivors and volunteers, but they had something the Kratal did not have. They had a reason to fight beyond conquest. They were fighting for freedom. The Kratal Grand Fleet arrived at the edge of the nebula. Emperor Dral himself was aboard the flagship. He would not trust this battle to anyone else. He stood on the command bridge, surrounded by his best officers. His best warriors. The humans are hiding inside, his scanner officer reported. Their sensor signatures are scattered through the nebula. At least 500 ships. 500 against 2,000, Dral said. They are fools. Send the fleet in. Destroy them all. Emperor, the nebula will interfere with our sensors. Our coordination will be difficult. We have 4 times their numbers. We do not need coordination. We need only strength. Forward! The Kratal fleet entered the nebula, and immediately everything went wrong. The dense gases scattered their sensors. Ships lost contact with each other. The perfect formation broke apart. Individual ships found themselves alone in the swirling clouds. That was when the humans attacked. Hyun's plan was simple. The Kratal were used to big battles, fleet against fleet. Instead, the humans turned it into 1,000 small fights. 3 human ships would appear out of the gas. They would attack a single Kratal vessel. Missiles and railgun fire from every direction. Before the Kratal ship could respond, the humans would vanish back into the nebula. Then they would do it again somewhere else. They are picking us apart, a Kratal officer shouted. Dral watched his fleet being scattered. Ships exploded in the colorful clouds. Others went dark, damaged, and drifting. He tried to reorganize, tried to form defensive positions, but in the nebula he could not see more than a few ships at a time, and the humans could see everything. Nari had designed a network of sensor drones. Tiny devices hidden throughout the nebula. They shared information in real time. The humans had a complete picture of the battlefield. They knew where every Kratal ship was. They knew which ones were isolated, which ones were damaged. They hunted them systematically. The battle lasted 16 hours, not because the humans needed that long, but because the Kratal fleet was so large that it took time to destroy. When it was over, 1,400 Kratal ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest retreated, jumped to FTL and ran. The human coalition lost 200 ships. It was a costly victory, but it was a victory. Emperor Dral stood in the ruins of his command center. His flagship had barely escaped. Around him, officers were dead. Systems were failing. His empire's greatest fleet had been destroyed. How? He whispered. How did this happen? But he knew. The humans did not fight like anyone else. They did not follow the rules. They did not care about honor or tradition. They cared only about winning, and they were very good at it. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. The Kratal Empire had been defeated. The Invincible had fallen. Species that had been enslaved for generations began to rebel. Kratal garrisons found themselves under attack. Entire worlds declared independence. The Empire was collapsing. But humanity was not satisfied with just winning battles. They wanted to end the war, permanently. Fleet Commander Gina stood before the assembled human and allied forces. She had been promoted after Taeyang retired. She was young for such a position, only 35, but she had proven herself in battle after battle. The Kratal Empire is broken, she said, but not destroyed. Emperor Dral still rules from the throne world of Draxus Prime. As long as he lives, as long as the capital stands, the Empire can rebuild. What are you proposing? Mino asked. We end this. We go to Draxus Prime. We give them one chance to surrender. If they refuse, she paused. We show them what total war really means. The Coalition fleet assembled. 800 ships, human vessels at the core, allied ships surrounding them. They jumped together, emerged from FTL at the edge of the Draxus system. The Cradle Throne world was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, cities that gleamed like jewels. It had never been attacked, never been threatened. For 1,000 years it had been the center of an empire. It was protected by an orbital defense grid, thousands of weapon platforms, energy shields that covered the entire planet, defensive stations armed with the most powerful weapons the Cradle had ever built. 47 species had tried to attack Draxus Prime over the centuries. All of them had failed. Gina sent a transmission directly to the Emperor. This is Commander Gina of the Earth Fleet. Your empire is defeated. Your armies are scattered. Surrender now. Free every enslaved species. Pay reparations. Dismantle your war machine. Do this and we will let you live in peace. Emperor Dral stood in his throne room. Around him advisors begged him to accept, to surrender, to save what remained. But Dral was proud. He had ruled for 50 years. He had never lost, never bowed, never shown weakness, never, he transmitted back. Draxus Prime has stood for 1,000 years. Its defenses have never been breached. You cannot take this world, human. Break yourselves against our walls. We will rebuild. We will remember. And one day we will have revenge. Gina closed the transmission. She looked at Engineer Hana, who stood nearby. Is it ready? Yes, Hana said quietly. But Commander, this is... We have never done anything like this before. I know. But they chose this. They had a chance for peace. Gina opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships begin evacuation protocol. Every civilian on Draxus Prime has 6 hours to leave. Broadcast the warning in every language. Anyone who wants to live must get off that planet now. The Cradle military refused to evacuate. They thought it was a trick. But millions of civilians fled anyway. Ships launched from every spaceport. Refugees poured into orbit. The Coalition fleet protected them, let them escape, gave them safe passage. 6 hours passed. Then Hana activated her weapon. It was not a bomb, not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was 3 asteroids, each one the size of a mountain. They had been captured from the outer system, accelerated to 30% of light speed using FTL drives. The orbital defense grid tried to stop them. Energy weapons fired, missiles launched. But the asteroids were not ships. They were solid rock moving at 90,000 kilometers per second. Nothing could stop them. The first asteroid hit the northern continent. The impact released energy equivalent to 1 million nuclear weapons. The second hit the southern pole. The third hit the ocean. The explosions were visible from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, Draxus Prime was still there. But every military installation was gone. Every defense platform. Every weapon. Every garrison. The orbital grid was scattered debris. The surface was scarred with impact craters. But the cities were mostly intact. The civilians who had stayed had survived in bunkers. The planet could be rebuilt. The war was over. Captain Minho stood on the surface of the rebuilt Velen home world. It had taken 3 years. But the cities were rising again. Forests were growing. The oceans were clean. 12 million Velen now lived here. Not 12 billion. But they were alive. Torin stood beside him. The Velen leader was older now. But his large eyes were not sad anymore. You saved us, Torin said. We sent a signal into the dark 40 years ago. We did not think anyone would hear. We did not think anyone would care. Someone heard, Minho said simply. Why did you come? Why did humans travel so far to save strangers? Minho thought about that. He thought about Admiral Taeyang trapped in ice on Europa. About the captain who flew through a radiation storm to save him. About humanity deciding to answer a distress call even though everyone might be dead. Because when someone asks for help, you help them, Minho said. That is what makes us human. Torin looked at the sky, at the stars. What will you do now? Will you go home? Minho smiled. Some of us will, but most will stay. The galaxy has more species like the Velen. More people who need help. More bullies who need to be stopped. You will stay, even though the war is over? The Kratal War is over. But there will be others. There are always others. Humans learned that a long time ago. The strong prey on the weak. That is the way of the universe. Unless someone stops them, Torin said. Unless someone stops them, Minho agreed. High above the planet, human ships patrolled. They were not alone anymore. Allied vessels flew beside them. Velen science ships, Horan engineering vessels, dozens of species that had been freed from slavery. They were learning from each other.